Nations and the pseudo-scientists who work in collusion with that worse-than-useless organization have manipulated, hidden, supposedly lost data, criminally evaded freedom of information laws, coerced and intimidated dissenting scientists, made a mockery of the scientific method by replacing verifiable study with false consensus, and otherwise provided the international socialist movement with the big lie they needed to strip Western civilization of our industrial base and to redistribute our wealth according to their own purposes. But don't look for Albert Gore Jr. to return his Nobel Prize, his Oscar, or to ever apologize for his part or his profits in that scheme.
So ridiculous.
This has been going on for a long time. And if you know your history, you know that we have known this. As the Soviet leader Khrushchev told the Eisenhower administration, "You Americans are so gullible. No, you won't accept communism outright, but we'll keep feeding you small doses of socialism until you finally wake up and find you already have communism. We won't have to fight you. We will so weaken your economy until you fall like overripe fruit into our hands."
Exactly.
You know, when the health care bill was rammed through Congress, taking over that vital 1/6 of our economy, tipping America over from being a capitalist nation with a few socialist policies to becoming a socialist nation with capitalism under siege, I was reminded of a story that Ronald Reagan told. There were two communists walking along, and one of them turned to the other and said, "Is this it? Have we done it? Have we finally achieved full communism?" And the other said, "Oh, hell no, it gets a lot worse than this." How many people miss Ronald Reagan? God bless him. It can get a lot worse, and that brings me back to progressive objective number 4, destroying America's military and manufacturing. Perhaps some of the best examples of this are in the news this very week. Anybody remember Neil Armstrong?
Yeah, yeah. He was
The first man to walk on the moon. James Lovell of Apollo 13 fame. Eugene Cernan, the last man on the moon. All American heroes. This week they told the Obama administration and the American people that American spaceflight is being set back for decades, and this will likely, in their opinion, and mine, doom us to a second or even third-rate status as a nation in the 21st century. The United States of America will this year, under President Obama's plan, no longer even be able to lift our own astronauts into orbit. We've got to hitch a ride with the Russians.
terrible.
Our $10 billion investment in the Constellation program will be discarded. America will have abandoned our crucial lead in human spaceflight. Those old heroes know what we should all know, that our freedom in the 21st century as a nation and humanity's future progress depend a lot upon the free world leading the way into space. Whose purpose does it serve for America to abandon space, that final frontier? Well, the high frontier of space is a military necessity for the defense of the free world. But the promises that candidate Obama made are being fulfilled as he has stripped our European allies of defensive radar systems, as he reduces our aging nuclear arsenal that has kept the world safe these many years, and as he refuses to maintain the cutting-edge technology that will keep our arsenal viable. But this is not all. The administration has failed even to meet its own soft deadlines to bring hard sanctions against Iran's nuclear threat, and backs off from even naming the Islamic jihadists who are at war against the United States and who, as we speak, work even now to make their own nuclear missiles within a year that could destroy Israel and rain atomic hellfire on Europe and on American troops stationed in that quarter of the globe.
Terrible. Terrible.
American energy independence, all that depends upon it, has been positioned to degrade and fail as our refineries age and few new ones are permitted, as nuclear energy is denied, as oil exploration off of our own shores is denied and delayed, and while China and Russia make plans of their own to drill in the Gulf of Mexico.
That's terrible.
Iran and now Venezuela in our own backyard enjoy the promises of Vladimir Putin to fulfill their arsenals and to provide them with nuclear power. Do you think it's a good idea for Hugo Chavez to have nuclear power?
No.
Meanwhile, the President of the United States this week bows before the leader of Communist China. His administration frightened to speak out against their currency manipulation that makes economic recovery for America even more difficult. Perhaps his fear is due to the amount of short-term treasury notes the Chinese hold and their threat to cash them in and to replace the dollar as the world's reserve currency. The sickening part about this, if that wasn't bad enough, is that they have bought our debt with our money, made through an unfair trade deficit that grows as America's manufacturing base shrinks due to high union labor costs here that are unable to compete against slave labor in China.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Our allies, since the Second World War, have one after another been abused and humiliated by this administration. The world no longer respects us. Our enemies no longer fear us. No wonder the President of the United States of America bows before them.
Boo.
This is perhaps the first generation since the Great Depression to wonder if we can make it better. We watch as our leadership is determined to make the same mistakes that prolonged the last Great Depression of the 1930s, which was deepened and protracted by taxation and spending. How many of you have heard about the Depression of the 1920s? You knew that there was a depression in the 20s. Great.
Yeah.
You guys are well informed. You know, all we've heard about is the Glenn Beck and also the Ludwig von Mises Institute. I think that's where he even got it from. But seriously, back in the administration of Warren G. Harding, who was not the greatest president maybe, but he knew that the way out of a depression, the way out of economic collapse, is to cut spending and cut taxes and give people a chance to breathe.
Amen.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've tried to paint for you the big picture as I see it. Perhaps I am no one to have an opinion about the big picture. No one but an American citizen. And that should be good enough for anyone. My opinion may be better or worse than others, but until recently, nobody doubted my right to hold it and to share it. We who own guns, go to church or synagogue, return from fighting to keep America free, are considered by this administration to be a greater threat to national security than the suicidal Islamic fanatics that have sworn our destruction.
Terrible.
They print this in their documents, and they speak this from the Office of Homeland Security. I want to take just a moment to quickly consider all of you potential domestic terrorists. A recent major poll demonstrated that the makeup of the Tea Party is almost exactly a cross-section of America. The Tea Party is not a gathering of racist, malcontent, knuckle-dragging Neanderthals as the progressives nervously try to reassure each other. We're just a bunch of kooks and fringe elements. We're not going to stick around. We're not going to be around forever. Wrong. We have news for them. We are all races. We are both genders. We are old and we are young. We are rich and we are poor. We are all political parties. Indeed, we are the only truly nonpartisan political movement in the country. Those who say that we are just shills for the Republican Party, well, they don't know us very well.
Exactly.
It's open season
Yeah,
on rhinos
exactly.
this year.
Yeah.
Who is the Tea Party? The Tea Party is the American citizen. They're not content with just talking about you in that fashion. They're looking for the leadership of the Tea Party. They were looking for these secret leaders, trying to pin them down, find out who they are, so that they can vilify them and trash their reputations in the world, and thereby, hopefully, make us look like just a bunch of kooks. I want to reveal for you today, if I may, who the secret leaders of the Tea Party are. Listen up, folks, and listen up in Washington, D.C. You may not have heard these names up in Washington. The leaders of the Tea Party are John and Samuel Adams, Ben Franklin, Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, James Monroe, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, the signers of the Declaration, and so many more through the centuries who have pledged their fortunes, their lives, and their sacred honor to deliver to us, their posterity, the sacred rights that our Creator gave us. To that list, we can add our own parents and grandparents who raised us to love America.